Picture this scenario. You're lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling. Your car breaks down, your laptop dies, or you lose your job. Unexpected expenses feel catastrophic. What if a specific dollar amount could eliminate almost all midnight anxiety sessions? Most people think financial milestones are just arbitrary numbers made up by the rich. But there is actual psychology and mathematics behind how certain amounts create dramatic shifts. And the first real game changer isn't $1 million or even $100,000. It's $10,000. Why do some glide through financial challenges while others are constantly stressed? Let's explore how each milestone changes your decision-making process. Before we look at what makes $10,000 so special, let's paint a picture of life without it. Like mentally calculating whether you can afford the generic or name-brand cereal at the store. This is the reality for millions living paycheck to paycheck. Every choice is a calculation. You're constantly playing defense with your money instead of making proactive choices. Here is where things get interesting, the psychological phenomenon of your first $10,000. And it has absolutely nothing to do with being able to buy expensive luxury items. In fact, most people who reach this milestone don't dramatically change their spending habits. The real transformation is much more subtle and powerful. It changes your relationship with risk. When you have zero savings, every decision feels dangerous. Moving or a new job triggers stress. But when you have $10,000 sitting in your account, suddenly these same decisions feel manageable. You might finally find the confidence to ask for that promotion you've been thinking about. You might be willing to invest in yourself by taking a course that could boost earning potential. The safety net doesn't make you reckless, but it gives you permission to think beyond survival. There's something fascinating that happens to your brain chemistry with a 5-figure balance. Neuroscientists found that financial security reduces cortisol levels, your body's stress hormone. Reaching $10,000 doesn't just change your finances, it literally changes how your body responds. Think about the last time you had a minor car problem. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that check engine light is a countdown to disaster. You're stressed about repairs, credit cards, or borrowing money from family. But when you have $10,000 saved, that same check engine light is just a simple inconvenience. This shift from panic to mild annoyance has ripple effects throughout your entire life. When you're not constantly worried about money, you make better decisions in general. You sleep better, you're more productive at work, and more patient with your family. Removing that stress unlocks mental energy that you can redirect toward improving your situation. The majority of the benefit doesn't come from spending the money. It comes from knowing it's there. This is what financial experts call the emergency fund effect, an underrated concept. An emergency fund isn't really about the emergencies. It's about peace of mind. It's about knowing you can handle emergencies seamlessly. Most people who build up $10,000 never spend it on crises. Instead, they spend it on opportunities. They invest in education, start businesses, move, or focus on increasing income. There's a confidence factor that's hard to quantify but impossible to ignore. When you have money in the bank, you negotiate better and walk away from bad deals because you aren't desperate. This confidence leads to better job opportunities, relationships, and life outcomes. $10,000 might sound impossible if you're struggling to save even $100 a month. But here's what's interesting. The hardest part isn't saving the money itself. The hardest part is developing the identity of someone who saves money. Most approach it like a diet. They cut expenses dramatically for a few months, burn out, and go back to old habits. People who successfully reach $10,000 don't think of saving as a temporary sacrifice. They think of it as becoming a completely different type of person. This identity shift is crucial because it affects every financial decision you make. When you see yourself as a saver, you notice opportunities to reduce expenses you never saw before. You become more creative about additional income and focus long-term instead of immediate gratification. The beautiful thing about this process is that it gets easier as you go. Your first $1,000 is brutal. But saving your second thousand is noticeably easier because you have the habits. By the time you work toward your fifth or sixth thousand, the process feels almost automatic. There's also a mathematical reality. $10,000 covers the vast majority of unexpected expenses. Car repairs, medical bills, job loss, family emergencies, handled with less than $10,000. Once you reach this milestone, you are effectively immune to most financial disasters. The most significant change when you save your first $10,000 is how you view money itself. Instead of seeing it disappear from your check, you start seeing it as a tool that multiplies your options. Before you have savings, money feels scarce and finite. Every dollar spent is gone forever. But with $10,000 working as a foundation, you understand that money can create more money. This is where people start getting interested in concepts like investing, side hustles, and passive income. Not because they became financial geniuses, but because they finally have the mental space. When you're not constantly worried about rent money, you can start wondering about retirement accounts. When you aren't stressed about grocery bills, you can start researching stock market investments. Here's something that might blow your mind. The person with $10,000 saved is closer to financial independence. Even if that second person earns twice as much money. Why? Because the saver has developed the most important skill in wealth building, keeping money. You probably know people who make six-figure salaries, but are somehow always broke. They drive expensive cars, live in fancy apartments, but have zero savings whatsoever. Meanwhile, someone making $40,000 a year can accumulate substantial savings by being intentional. The difference isn't income, it's mindset, and reaching 10K is like a master class. You learn to distinguish between wants and needs, and reduce expenses without feeling deprived. Most importantly, you develop the patience to delay gratification, the single most valuable skill. Now, let's talk about what $10,000 can actually do for you in practical terms. First, it covers almost any car repair short of needing a completely new engine. With $10,000 in the bank, car problems shift from financial disasters to minor inconveniences. Medical emergencies become manageable, too. Even without great insurance, most urgent care visits or minor procedures fall within this range. You won't cover major surgery, but you can handle the vast majority of health issues that pop up. Job loss, the scariest financial scenario for most people, becomes something you can actually survive. $10,000 gives you roughly 3 to 6 months of breathing room to find new employment. That's enough time to be selective about your next opportunity instead of accepting the first offer. Having $10,000 doesn't just protect you from disasters, it actually creates opportunities. Like a certification program that costs $2,000 upfront, but boosts your salary by $10,000 annually. Without savings, this is impossible. With your financial foundation, it's an obvious investment. Or perhaps a friend mentions they are starting a business. Without savings, you can only wish them luck. With $10,000, you have the option to participate in something that could change your trajectory. Having options feels incredibly different from having no options at all. The psychological impact extends beyond finance. When you have money saved, you sleep better. Studies show people with emergency funds report significantly better sleep quality than those without. Eliminating financial stress has immediate, compound health benefits. Your relationships improve as well. Money stress is a leading cause of family conflict. When you aren't worried about bills, you have more emotional energy to invest in people. You're less irritable, less anxious, and more present in your interactions with others. There is also something to be said for the confidence boost that comes with money in the bank. You walk into job interviews differently when you know you don't desperately need the position. You're more likely to negotiate salary and benefits because you aren't operating from fear. This results in higher compensation, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates progress. Let's address the elephant in the room. $10,000 sounds like an enormous amount of money from scratch. The good news is that you don't need to save it all at once. In fact, trying to save too aggressively often backfires because it isn't sustainable. The most successful savers I know started with ridiculously small amounts, maybe $25 or $50 a month. The key is consistency, not the size of the initial contribution. The average American spends over $3,000 per year on coffee, dining out, and convenience purchases. That's not even counting major expenses like car payments or entertainment subscriptions. Redirect just 1/3 of that spending, and you'd have your $10,000 in less than 3 years. I am pointing out that most people have more flexibility in their budgets than they realize. The difference usually comes down to awareness and intentionality, not income level. The compound effect of having $10,000 goes far beyond immediate financial security. It changes how you think about risk, how you approach opportunities, and how you plan for the future. It proves to yourself that you are capable of achieving financial goals, creating momentum. When you have your first 10K saved, you start thinking differently about your next 10K. Before you know it, you're on a path toward real financial independence. Not because you got lucky, but because you developed the habits and mindset that make wealth building inevitable. The transformation that happens when you save your first $10,000 isn't just about the money. It's about becoming the type of person who has money saved. And that identity shift creates ripple effects that extend into every corner of your life. Let's talk about decision fatigue, a real psychological phenomenon. Every day you make thousands of tiny financial decisions, brand name or generic pasta. Can I afford to grab lunch today or should I pack a sandwich? Each burns mental energy. By the end of the day, you're exhausted from constantly calculating whether you can afford things. But when you have $10,000 in the bank, suddenly 90% of these daily financial decisions become irrelevant. You choose based on what you actually prefer, not out of panic about your bank account. Imagine how much mental energy you'd free up if you stopped survival-based calculations 50 times a day. I know someone who almost cried at the grocery store after hitting $10,000 in savings. That's a level of freedom most people don't even realize they're missing until they experience it. Now let's get real. Having $10,000 saved doesn't make you rich. It doesn't mean you can quit your job and become a professional beach volleyball player. But what it does give you is breathing room, and breathing room is the foundation of good decisions. When you're not gasping for financial air, you can think strategically about your money. Maybe you notice your car insurance renewal is coming up, and you have time to shop for better rates. These optimizations might only save you $50 a month, but they compound over time into serious savings. When you have zero savings, every dollar feels precious because losing it means disaster. But when you have $10,000 saved, individual dollars start feeling less precious, allowing investment. The person with no savings might skip a $50 networking event because $50 feels like too much. But the person with 10K saved attends that event and meets someone who offers a job paying $5,000 more. The safety net makes you more willing to invest in opportunities, accelerating your career growth. Financial security gives you the confidence to take chances that broke people simply cannot afford. Let's talk about something nobody mentions in personal finance articles: the social dynamics of money. When you're constantly stressed about money, it affects how you interact with others in subtle ways. $10,000 isn't just a number in your bank account. It's a complete psychological transformation. From sleeping better to walking into interviews with actual confidence, this milestone creates a domino effect. If you're currently staring at a balance that looks like a phone number from the 1950s, don't panic. Start small, stay consistent, and remember that the person you become while saving is infinitely more valuable.